Right, Congress leader and also importantly chairperson of the Standing Committee of Parliament on Information Technology. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor, your first reactions to the Pegasus hack revelations, what do they suggest to you? Should we be taking it as an issue of critical national importance today?
Rajdeep, it seems to me this is a very serious matter because what has apparently happened, and I say apparently because I'm sure we're all conscious of the government's denial, is that the Pegasus spyware, which is there for tracking terrorists and criminals, and that is only sold by this Israeli firm NSO Group to vetted governments, was apparently used in attempted and successful hacks of smartphones belonging to journalists, human rights activists, politicians, at least one so-called constitutional authority. And so this is a matter of some concern for all of us, because the implication that the government has been snooping on its own citizens, including many going about their own lawful business, is very serious. We are a democracy, the rule of law prevails. While no one would object to the government intercepting communications to track terrorists or prevent crimes, private citizens, including opposition politicians, enjoy a fundamental right to privacy. The Supreme Court has affirmed that in the Puttaswamy judgment. And so if, as is suggested, the ruling party has been using taxpayers' money-funded software to obtain information on its political opponents, as the targeting of Rahul Gandhi or Prashant Kishore suggests, that would be unethical. It would be a misuse of taxpayers' money for partisan political purposes, and it would be illegal because in our country, there are very clearly established procedures as well as rules and laws under which there are authorized exceptions where you can intercept communication for national security, but you can't just go and hack somebody's device.
But Dr. Tharoor, let's be clear. This is what your word is against that of the Modi government. On the floor of the House today, the IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said the allegations of snooping have no concrete basis. There is absolutely no truth. They called it a fishing expedition based purely on conjecture and sensationalism. So there are two clear views, Dr. Tharoor. What is the basis, the evidence the government wants to know on the basis of which these allegations are made?
So the government's view, as far as I'm concerned, it has to be taken very seriously. It's an official statement by the IT minister. But he says there is no unauthorized surveillance. The question that automatically raises is, has there been authorized surveillance? And if there has been authorized surveillance, then on what basis was it authorized? The law is very clear. It's got to be national security, the integrity of the nation, national sovereignty, and so on. Very difficult to justify that in relation to some of the names mentioned. You say the names are speculative. Yes, perhaps, but on the basis of the names on the database, a number of phones have been forensically analyzed. And those phones that have been forensically analyzed include 10 in India, of which 7 iPhones in India have been proven to have the Pegasus hacking virus installed. So the question is, who installed it? If you got a virus that only governments are able to deploy, if the Indian government didn't do it, and I hope that their denial will stand up and they didn't do it, then foreign governments must have done it. And isn't that equally worrying for us as a national security concern?
Sure, but Dr. Tharoor, let's be clear. Allegations keep getting made of this nature. Parliament is in session. How does one resolve it given the fact that there is a danger of being trapped in the usual debate? The government will issue a strong denial claiming they did not misuse any spyware. You insist that the government may well have tapped opposition politicians.
I think an independent inquiry is the only way that will set people's minds at rest. That is, if there is an inquiry saying very clearly that this is the evidence, we've seen the facts as we understand it. We've heard all the competent government officials, and we being ideally an independent sitting judge, as well as, of course, I do chair the parliamentary committee, and the parliamentary committee has these very subjects: citizens' data protection and security, citizens' data privacy, and cyber security are all issues on the agenda of the committee. We too will ask our questions, but you will immediately say you're a political body of MPs. That's why I said let's also have, or let's principally have, an independent investigation by a sitting judge. That way the judge will be able
So
to weigh the evidence and decide.
you're calling for an independent probe headed by a judge. Will you, all your political colleagues, including Mr. Rahul Gandhi, submit their phones also for forensic analysis? At the end of the day, you're going to need to provide conclusive proof beyond all the names that are listed, that these phones were indeed hacked. Should all politicians or all those who find their names on the diary submit their phones now voluntarily, Dr. Tharoor?
Not just politicians. As you understand, there were activists, there were journalists, there were others. So if there is a list of, I think about 100 odd names in India have been identified. And if you get a reasonable sample from across those names to submit the phones corresponding to the numbers listed in the database, it should be a voluntary exercise. If they volunteer to submit their phones and those phones are forensically analyzed and hacking is established, then a crime has been committed because it is illegal to do that. And then I think action would have to be taken.
Do you really believe, though, that this is India's Watergate moment, or is it true that, frankly, snooping has existed in this country at various levels by intelligence bureau officials, for the longest time? Are we running ahead of ourselves, particularly at the moment, since the government is claiming, please provide us evidence beyond just names, and has issued this denial?
Well, I think the government's denial must be respected as a government's denial, and there is no question that we have well-established laws and procedures. In fact, even the punishment for the crime is specified. It's apparently up to 3 years in prison and a fine of up to 5 lakh rupees, or both, for anybody who conducts unauthorized access to a computer device, computer resource, computer network. That's the law. Section 43 read with Section 66 of the IT Act. So in these circumstances, you actually have the law laying down very clearly what's possible, what's not possible, and even what the punishment is. So the way forward under the law is very clear. But the only way we'll know if the law has been breached is if there is an independent investigation of the entire Pegasus affair.
Final question, Dr. Tharoor. Do you also believe that this is a moment that must ensure that we have this stronger data protection law, a clear legal architecture that ensures if any person's privacy is violated, we have a system of ensuring that we get adequate a response from the state? Otherwise, we'll all worry that the big brother is watching us.
Absolutely. In fact, I've presented a private member's bill of a data protection law now 3 or 4 years ago. And the fact is that others have also been talking about this. There is a private data protection bill being reviewed by a joint select committee, but that committee is already 1.5 years overdue in submitting its report. And now the chairman and 2 of its members have been made into ministers. So there'll again be a further delay. I think this is most unfortunate. Every other advanced democracy has actually gone ahead and passed a data protection law in one form or the other, some very impressive and far-reaching, and we could have moved ahead learning from best practices around the world. Unfortunately, our government has chosen to drag its feet on this matter, and I'm sure COVID has also contributed to delays. I certainly would agree with you, a data protection law is necessary. But under the existing laws, there has been a breach. Under the existing laws, there is a violation and an illegality, and that's something very clearly that needs to be investigated and established anyway.
Dr. Tharoor, you made it very clear on more than one occasion. You believe that there should be now a fair and independent inquiry headed by a judge into this case. Appreciate your joining me at the top of the news today.